Hello and welcome everyone. Now I thought I'm going to do a podcast based episodes, and today we'll begin with starting your journey in witchcraft. Now there's a lot of sort of mystique surrounding, beginning the craft, one of which is how do you know that you are a witch? Now on YouTube you have so many different videos that explain to you how you might know that you're a natural witch and all that sort of stuff. Personally, I don't really agree with most of them. I think everyone has the potential to go into witchcraft, especially if you sense that there's a little bit more out there and you're naturally curious. So the first thing is you clicked on this video. For me, that means that you're interested in becoming a witch or training yourself into witchcraft. Now, just to say that witchcraft is not a destination, but so much as it is a journey that we take, and it's quite personal. And I think it's quite important to see being a witch not as an ending destination, like the role that you want to fulfill, but it's a spiritual journey and it's forever ongoing. And I'm gonna first start off with reasons not to get into witchcraft. I mean, there are many, but they all evolve around negative and dark energy and dark thoughts. So if it stems from a dark place and you want to harm someone, I mean, I've been approached personally by other people that were into, saying, oh, I want to do some witchcraft, P, where do I start? And I just said to them, why are you so curious into witchcraft all of a sudden? Now, this is to do with some of my older friends. And she was like, well, I feel that I'm being threatened by this other person, and I'd like to, hex them or curse them or whatever. And I was like, right, if you're in this mindset, I'm not going to tell you anything really, because witchcraft and sort of witch practice should stem from a lighter and a much nicer place. Because if you are surrounding yourself with this dark energy, it will negatively impact you. It's always going to come back and bite you in the rear. It's just the way life is, really. So if you are going into witchcraft, don't go into it because you want to harm someone. Go into witchcraft because you might want to find yourself or do some good in the world. And always start quite simple. Now, a lot of people, once they begin their sort of looking into witchcraft, seeing it online, on Instagram, on other social media platforms like TikTok, even on YouTube, people often say, oh yes, I'm gonna do this amazing ceremony and perform this magical ritual and all that sort of jazz. And I just feel like that's quite a lot. People often go, oh yes, I need to buy this, this, this and that. They make these massive shopping lists full of tools and items that they want to buy because they sort of feel as if that's going to give them the power, whereas all the power to do any sort of magic work in witchcraft lies within you. Now, if you are going to want to buy some items that you've seen online, or you feel like you want to have a wand, or even a saging stick, I mean, most items are available in nature for you to take for free. So, if you are buying items online, I just recommend going to smaller shops, having a look at Etsy, but also being careful when you do shop in Etsy, because I know that a lot of items can be dropped shipped these days, because places such as AliExpress and so on, they also offer witchcraft based tools. But yeah, all in all, you do not need fancy tools. So if you're trying to do any spell work, I would also suggest, again, starting simple and building strong foundations. So you might want to, begin with doing some research. You might want to do some grounding and protection. My personal first ritual was a cleansing. Now, the first ever proper ritual I performed was in 2017. At the time, I was a practicing Wiccan for good 3 years. I did sort of minor bits of spell work here and there. I never really did a full-out sort of ceremony or invoked any higher magic. And I decided to do that with a good cleanse. Now, cleansing your space, your home, it's quite important. And for me, I was like, if I am to do any more witchcraft or really get into it, I want to start off with grounding myself and then eventually move into cleansing the space. So after spending 2 years, I know that's quite a long time for a lot of people, but for me it took a good 2 years to sort of ground myself, and it's an ongoing process. But yeah, cleansing. I decided to go into my ex-partner's grandma's garden. She used to grow a lot of sort of sage because she used it in cooking. So I dried a bit, tied it all up in a nice bunch after drying it, and I performed a cleansing ritual. Now, at the time, I was super, super, super nervous. But it was a good experience because that was the first time that I actually felt another presence in the room with me. It was the presence of the god sort of aspect. It was a horned god, I remember, because I was seeing the shadow, imagining a lot of horns in my eyes and like stags as I was going and cleansing our apartment. So yeah, that was my first experience, and I didn't feel scared during the whole ceremony. I felt so confident and loved, and I think that's quite important as well. Of course, when you might be doing your first ever spell or ritual, you might be a bit nervous. Some of us, when we speak, we sometimes trip up on things that we say or, mispronounce things, and it's completely okay as long as you know and what you're saying and how you hold this feeling within you and the entire energy around you. So yeah, I mean, learning from my example, when performing a cleansing, you don't need any fancy tools. At that time, I didn't even have a wand really. I used to go out hiking quite often, and I did find, multiple sort of sticks, branches that I really thought that I might make wands out of it or use them. But till this day, I mostly use my index finger of my right hand when I'm casting a ritual like a circle. But I will get into casting protection circles and in spell work and ceremony at a much later episode. But yeah, when you're starting your journey, I think it's quite important that, you understand that you don't need to have all of these fancy tools, crystals, be wearing ceremonial robes. I do have ceremonial robes myself, but I don't use them that often. And I think once you're starting witchcraft, you also need to know that to be a witch, you don't need to constantly be casting spells here and there and, being active all the time. Sometimes it's good to do just small mindful magic. Even if you're making a tea and you're stirring it, you can stir it with intention. People say even blowing a candle out is called, magic, even though candle blowing and making a wish is one thing. And personally, I don't blow candles out anymore, as it can be seen as offensive to the fire elements or elementals and spirits. But then again, that's a completely other thing. Since you're beginning your witchcraft journey, I think it's a good place to look into your own ancestry. Have a look where you're from, your history. Do a bit of digging around and research, because we live in a day and age where information can be shared freely you are not going to be burnt at the stake for practicing witchcraft like people used to, unfortunately. Witchcraft and paganism has a very rich history, and I do recommend having a look into it online, just doing some reading, but keep in mind that it is quite heavy reading, as a lot of people died for their beliefs. But just coming to that sort of topic, I've come across witches that have such big hatred towards other cultures, religions as well. So, for example, a lot of witches I've met have very sour taste of Christianity. They despise Christians because of bad blood and history. Now, me personally, I don't harbour hatred or such feelings because I know that as a witch I am a better person. I don't despise any religion, any belief, and I believe that everyone is entitled to their own. So I try to harbour as many good feelings and see things in a positive light, or as neutral as I can. I don't try to hate on something just because something happened in the past. I'm trying to move on, be a better person, better myself and better other people around me. So, whilst you're researching into witchcraft, you might want to sort of have a think about what you as a person find appealing, what interests you when it comes down to witchcraft. And you may want to keep a little journal where you write things down. You may want to read about Wicca. That's where I started my witchcraft journey personally. I looked into Wicca because they have a very sort of strong set of rules and, I call it regulations. But yeah, it's also important when you're looking into Wicca that Wicca is a spiritual practice and not all witches are Wiccan. Now you might want to research different types of witchcraft. I'm just going to list a few off the top of my head. So you might be looking at coven-based witchcraft, hereditary witchcraft, solitary practitioners, crystal, cosmic, moon, fae, forest, green witches, hedge witches, plant witch, grey, white witches, eclectic witches, folk or traditional, kitchen witches, half witches, ceremonial, water or sea witches. So the list can go on absolutely forever, because witchcraft is not just sort of one thing and you sort of follow it as if it was, Christianity or any other religion. Witchcraft is basically a practice, and it can involve many different religious beliefs, and you can't really define it with one term. It's a very personal thing, so it's worth to have a little look at the different types of witchcraft if you're not sure which one appeals to you the most. Again, it's all about self-exploration, looking at what you want to research and find out about. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave this first episode for everyone to go out afterwards and have a little look about, reflect on oneself and see what appeals to you. Now, I'd like to wish you a wonderful day wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, especially if you made it this far. Give it a like, give it a thumbs up. If you want to share something about your personal journey and any tips for beginner witches, please comment down below. I think it would be nice if all of us could share together our knowledge and our wisdom for the baby witches and other witches to find. We can all learn something from each other. So yeah, thank you for watching and listening.